Okay, guys, welcome to Oil in Texas. So, Texas, prior to the oil industry, was essentially kind of like a backwater, little agricultural state. Well, not a little agricultural state, but a pretty giant one. But everything in this country or this part of the country was all agricultural. You have cotton, you have cattle, you have the railroad industry helping with that and helping to develop cities, but all that economic growth is based on agriculture. You don't have a large industry presence going on until about 100 years ago, actually a little bit more now. You have this change in transportation, this change in industry, and it goes all around the world. It's not just in our state, but it makes a huge difference in our state, and our state will affect the rest of the world. So oil, and this is a cool link to a website about the oil industry, where actually this quote comes from. But the idea here, I wanted water and they got me oil. I was mad clean through. The idea about wanting water and you get oil and you don't want oil. Well, that's because in 1903, there's not a lot of demand for oil. It's growing on the world stage, but there are other places meeting that demand. And oil is not real easy to get at that time. Drilling procedures haven't improved, they will improve. Um, and Texas isn't known for oil. People know there's oil here, but the reality is oil is just kind of an imposition for farmers and ranchers who need water. So this agricultural mindset towards oil will change though, because as we can see, demand will start to increase. When steamships and trains switch from coal to fuel, that's going to change and the demand will increase, and then oil will be the new modern fuel, and soon trucks and automobiles will all run on oil. All of that is going to change that desire for oil. As that desire is changing, you're going to head into, the 1900s, late 1800s, and by the time Petilio Higgins is looking for oil in Texas, because he's heard these farmers' stories talking about, I struck oil, I don't want oil. He knows there's oil here. He has a good feeling about Spindletop Hill in Texas. He's thinking, yeah, that's the geography or the geology looks right for there to be oil here. So he's thinking that sure enough, there's got to be oil there. And he starts drilling, and he's not real successful. So he starts advertising around, looking for some guys to come do it. He ends up getting this guy, Lucas, and Lucas is going to come in and do the drilling properly. They're going to use some different technology to get it done, and eventually they will hit the Spindletop gusher. That's a great link to a video about Spindletop. You check that out. But here's an interesting quote. Keep the people back. Don't let them smoke. Don't let any of them smoke. When oil came out of the ground in these gushers, it also brought flammable gases with it. And if somebody was smoking, 100 feet away, you could have a massive explosion and kill everybody. So as you can see, oil is shooting up 100 feet. And it did that for 9 days. 9 days of oil shooting over 100 feet in the air. That is a huge ecological disaster these days. Good Lord, you'd never get away with that kind of mess. So the idea there is that that's what's going on, is these wells are being drilled, and they're all of a sudden striking the largest strike of oil in 1901. Now, what is that going to do to Texas? Well, the Spindletop oil boom, it suddenly is pumping out 70 to 100,000 barrels per day, meeting that demand. So they're going out and pumping oil out into the world to meet that demand. There's so much being pumped that prices will fall, because there's this kind of concept of like oil underground being a milkshake, and everybody is sharing that milkshake. And if I drill down on my property into the milkshake, I can pull out whatever I want. And you might have a farm right across from me. You can drill down on your land into the same oil deposit and pull it up. So the more land I can control, the more oil wells I can sink. If you have land in my area, well, you can pull oil out too, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's the reality of oil and drilling for oil. If you've got surface land, you have mineral rights underneath them, and you can drill. So what that creates is essentially a boom town. And this is what these boom towns look like. For example, this person is saying that the oil rigs were just like bristles in a hairbrush. So you can see, there's like literally thousands of them right in the middle of this town. And it creates a lot of problems. So you think about this, maybe not a problem first off, but it changes prices for real estate. If all of a sudden you were trying to sell your property, your asking price because of the oil in the area can go way up. And that's a big deal. I mean, if you're going to go from $150 to $20,000 and then 15 minutes later, $50,000, I mean, that's $30,000 jump. That's insane at that time. So the idea that this land suddenly becomes that valuable is a big deal. All right, so now we move on to the effects of this. It basically, almost overnight, but not really overnight, it changes the whole industrial mindset of Texas. It turns Texas into an oil state. It's not lumber, it's not cotton, it's not cattle anymore, it's oil. Oil is the #1 business, the new economic engine. It creates a new massive amounts of companies, from oil companies to drilling companies to lumber companies. It increases the amount of economic productivity going on in Texas, and it does it quick. So what we see pretty soon is the rise of boom towns. So thousands of fortune seekers, thousands of wildcatters, these people who just want a little plot of land to sink a well. Like literally, look, this is the hotel, that's an oil well right in the middle of the town. So this quote pretty aptly describes it. There were people living in tents with children. There were a lot of them that had these great big cardboard boxes draped around trees, living under the trees, and everything everywhere in the world. So these people are just, even says here they're living out of their cars and trucks. There's just no place to stay. Down here at the bottom, this is an interesting part. At one point, a barrel of oil costs 3 cents. That's that. All of a sudden, that huge supply is dropping prices because the demand has stayed the same. And then a clean cup of water is 5 cents. So you can buy a barrel of oil or a cup of water. And notice clean cup. Now, back then, a steak, like a nice steak, that's $1. So that kind of gives you an idea of 5 cents for a cup of water over a barrel of oil. That says something about prices. And keep that in mind when we start thinking about what's going on in these boom towns. So this next quote I'm going to read to you just because I just love this quote. The city water of Beaumont back in those days was soupy. Its odor clearly indicated the presence of alligators, bullfrogs, and fish. Everyone soon learned if water was used for drinking purposes that it caused severe stomach cramps, or what was locally known as the Beaumonts. Toilet facilities being limited, Beaumonts called for bidding as high as 50 cents for immediate use of a toilet. So the idea that a town would get so bad that because there's no infrastructure, there's no sewer system, no water system, all of a sudden you've got this massive demand for things. And most of these people who are poor, who are trying to make money, they're eating the cheapest food available, which was chili made over an open fire in a bathtub. No joke. They would be these big tents where people would come in and they would charge you for everything, for a spoon, a bowl, a napkin, everything. So talk about communicable diseases, talk about getting dysentery. This was a horrible place to work and live. Um, if you take a look at some towns, for example, you've got oil derricks, tents, spilled oil, a hotel, a restaurant, another oil derrick right there in the back. So things aren't changing, or things are changing and not for the better. All right, so we're going to end this one here. We'll have a short video continuing this. Y'all have a good one.